Simon Miller from WhatCulture here with Ken Shamrock. Ken, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Get to meet all these fans, man. It's always a great time to spend time with the fans.
Also, I just said this before we started. This is a genuine pleasure for me because when I was growing up and getting into wrestling, you have the people that are presented as these are the main event guys, and then other people start coming through, and for one reason or another you start gravitating. You were that guy for me. I was like, who is this Ken Shamrock guy? He's so legit and he's so real. And then you grow up, the internet becomes a thing, and you realize, oh my gosh, he's legit and real. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting too because getting into wrestling was something that I never really watched that much. I mean, I watched Pat Patterson, Moondog Mayne, and stuff like that, but not really into it. But as I got a little bit older, I got into UFC. I started fighting. I did pro wrestling before that. Wasn't really like a big deal for me. It wasn't until I got into WWF where I really fell in love with it and really started to understand how hard it really was to be able to master all of the different things you had to do. One, you had to learn how to cut a promo. You had to learn how to sell. You had to learn how to remember all the spots, be in the right place at the right time, and then being able to dodge all the injuries because so many of that stuff happens because you're not in the right spot at the right time. It could cause injuries. So, but yeah, it was a great experience for me.
But genuinely, we kind of touched upon this again before we started and record. The way that you approached it, as if, I'd like to be careful with my terms, but you approached it like this, no. What you see with me is the real deal. And now that is how everybody is presenting themselves. I genuinely think you were the dude that opened the door to that, and especially in American wrestling, no question.
Well, I think that, wrestling in itself for a long time was about flipping your hair back and a costume. And I think that once we got into that attitude era, it became more about attitude. It became more about realism and guys that are out there literally kicking ass. And so for me, I think that was an important part of wrestling and turning the corner so that when people went to watch wrestling, they went to watch a show, but they went to watch a show that they knew when they were in there wrestling that they were getting real moves, they were getting real hits, and they were getting real throws. And the guys were in there working hard. And a lot of times before that, you had squash matches and you had guys going there and throwing somebody around and beating them real quick. That attitude era really changed things for wrestling where people looked at it and couldn't tell whether or not it was scripted.
Yeah. And so obviously you came from a mixed martial arts background, whatever you want to call it. Was it hard for you to make the transition? Because obviously in MMA you're told, kill that guy and the referee will stop you at the right time. Whereas in wrestling it's like, well, no, don't do that. So how do you kind of fight your instincts, I suppose?
Well, I think a lot of my opponents or guys that I wrestled will tell you that's what I did. I tried to kill them. Yeah, it just so happens that there was definitely a program put together. But when we did our match, especially with me and The Rock, we attacked one another. We were aggressive, but that's what we wanted. Stone Cold Steve Austin, even Shawn Michaels, man, I give him credit too because I was able to get in and get aggressive with him. So a lot of the guys that went with me were excited to wrestle with me because I think they were looking for that realism. Yeah. So for me, it was a really great experience. Everybody took me in. I got to learn from them, and they got to learn from me.
Yeah. You brought up The Rock, so I'm going to be that guy and ask you the question you've been asked 7,000 times. But if I don't, in the comments, they're like, why didn't you mention the chair shot, right? Now, that happened in, 98, 99? I mean, around that period. So we're like, let's say 20-odd something. People still talk about it. I've heard people say, I mean, what a weird phrasing. That's the greatest chair shot I've ever seen. Greatest you can have. What does it feel like to be smacked that hard in the face, I suppose?
Well, first of all, when people ask me, whether that was on purpose or not, I told him to do it. In fact, he's in the ring. You can see me say, you better bring it. Because for me, if I've got to take one, I better take the best one. So that's what it was. I mean, we definitely went in, and me and Rock had already had this rapport with one another that we were going to go in there and kick each other's ass. We were going to put on the best show we possibly could because we're going against guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret Hart and The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, and the list goes on and on. It was a very competitive market at that time, even WCW with what they had going on. So we knew that we had to put on a great show. We had to get aggressive, and I think that kind of infiltrated the whole locker room. Like everybody was saying, okay, bring it. We ain't playing around anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got one question, so I want to put this out there, because this is me trying to manifest it. You can completely ignore it if you want. genuinely, you look through that list of Hall of Fame inductees. I mean, not only should you be in it, but you should at least have some sort of swan song with the WWE. Whatever me, come out, you cut a promo, you come out, whatever. Why has that never happened in your estimation? Because you were there for a brief time, but a memorable time. Hence why we're here in 2023, and everyone still remembers the name Ken Shamrock from a professional wrestling point of view.
Yeah, it's hard for me to understand. Wrestling's hard to understand anyways on the politics,
crazy,
right? So you see some guys get inducted in and before others, you're like, hey, what happened to that guy? So it's really out of my control. But I would say this, that, short time to me, when I was there for 3 years or so, is really irrelevant. I think when you look at a Hall of Fame thing, because you've seen other people that have been inducted in that had 1, 2, 3, 4 matches, right? Totally. I think you look at it and understand, did they leave the business better, right? I mean, that's one of the qualifications. And if you look at Ken Shamrock, after he leaves and before he was there, did he have an impact on pro wrestling? And I think if you look at it, you can also look at the tap out. Obviously, there was I give up, I quit, but the actual tap out was never there. Now it is. And then you look at all of the submission holds. Even though Brock was there, Ronda Rousey was there, a lot of other people came in, but it all came in after Ken Shamrock did the first choke slam armbar on The Undertaker. I mean, there were so many things that I did first. The ankle lock, which so many people had taken and really perfected it, which was an honor. People always say, you get mad about that? No, of course not. It's an honor. Like, they did something that I did first. Obviously, it's an honor. So I think you look at it from that perspective. I think that I did enough, at least to be considered for the Hall of Fame.
Oh, no, totally, man. Like, just speaking from a fan's point of view, I look back at all your stuff. It was great. Also, underrated theme music. Your theme music was awesome, dude. It was great. Ken Shamrock, thank you so much for your time. Put him in the Hall of Fame. That's what I say. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. See you soon.
You ever been betrayed?
Thankfully, I've never been betrayed.
What about, you don't know what we feeling then, Oos. You have no idea what we feeling then.
You ever been embarrassed?
Oh, I'm a redhead. I've always been embarrassed.
Damn
yeah.
shirt on too.
You and
better
Sammy's ain't red. Yeah.
Well, this is what I was thinking. I was thinking.
Y'all look like relatives.
I was thinking there's a sort of redhead-shaped hole within the bloodline. How oozy would you rate me on a scale of 1 to 10 right now?
A 0.
I'm the first man to break Roman Reigns' 2-year winning streak, but we just don't talk about it. Why? Why? Tell me why. I don't understand why. We don't talk about this.
Tell Simon we're going to talk about those ups that he be giving and those downs. So, Simon, I'm looking for you. You dipped out when you were interviewing Woods, but I watch every Tuesday. I go and watch him count those ups and count those downs. And so
it's all him. That's all him.
Yeah. We're going to have to talk about my ups.